In 1965, a woman fed a family of 5 on almost nothing. No credit card, no delivery apps, no safety net. In 2026, the average American can't cover a $400 emergency without going into debt. Something went very wrong somewhere between then and now. Her name was Dorothy, and the system she built in her kitchen with a pencil and a few envelopes still works today. What if I told you the best financial advice you'll ever hear didn't come from a Wall Street banker, a best-selling author, or a finance influencer with 1 million followers? What if it came from a woman standing in a kitchen in Ohio in 1965, staring at a stack of unpaid bills, with 3 kids upstairs, and a husband who had just walked through the door 2 hours early from a job he no longer had? Her name was Dorothy. And what she did over the next 8 months, with nothing but a spiral notebook, a handful of labeled envelopes, and a mindset most of us have never been taught, kept her family fed, housed, and completely out of debt. No credit cards, no loans, no help from family. Just discipline, strategy, and a kind of quiet strength that I think most of us have forgotten how to find. Now here's the part that's going to surprise you. Some of what Dorothy did was simple, almost embarrassingly simple. But there is one thing she did, one habit she practiced every single Sunday evening that modern financial experts are still arguing about today. And when I tell you what it is, I think you're going to feel the same thing I felt the first time I heard this story. A little humbled and a lot inspired. Stay with me until the end of this video, because we're going to go deep. We're going to walk through every strategy Dorothy used, week by week, and then bring it all forward into 2026, into your life, your budget, your grocery store, your utility bill, and show you exactly how to apply it. If this kind of content is useful to you, real stories, real strategies, no fluff, consider subscribing before we go any further. It genuinely helps this channel, and I think you're going to want to be here for what comes next. All right, let's go back, way back, to 1965. Now we get to the part of Dorothy's strategy that I think about most, the part that sounds almost too simple to be as powerful as it is, the envelopes. After Dorothy had done her weekly mapping in the notebook, she would take whatever cash was available and divide it into physical envelopes. She had 6 of them, labeled in her neat handwriting: groceries, utilities, gas, clothing, children, emergency. Each envelope got its allocated amount for the week, cash, real paper bills and coins, and the rule was absolute and unwavering. When an envelope was empty, that category was finished for the week. Done. No borrowing from next week, no exceptions. If the grocery envelope ran dry on a Thursday, you made do with what was already in the pantry until Sunday when the new week's allocation went in. If the gas envelope was running low and Robert had an interview across town, they made a conscious decision together to pull from the clothing envelope because an interview mattered more than new socks. But that decision was made out loud, together, deliberately. Nothing happened by accident. And here is why this works on a deep psychological level. Because this isn't just a quaint, old-fashioned habit. There is genuine modern science behind it. When you spend digitally, when you tap your card, click a button, use a payment app, your brain processes that transaction very differently than it does when you hand over physical cash. Studies in behavioral economics have shown this repeatedly. The pain of paying is significantly reduced when money is abstract, which is exactly why we designed our entire modern economy around making payments as painless and invisible as possible. One tap, done. No friction. That frictionlessness is not an accident. It is a design choice that benefits everyone in the transaction except you. Dorothy had maximum friction. Every purchase was a physical act. She counted out bills. She felt the weight of coins in her hand. She watched the envelope get lighter. That physical reality made her think twice about every single purchase, not in an anxious, exhausting way, in a grounded, conscious way. She was never surprised at the end of the week by where the money had gone, because she had felt it going. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. I can't walk around with cash envelopes in 2026. And look, you're right that the world is different. Most landlords want electronic payments. Most utilities are set up on autopay. You're not going to bring a grocery envelope to the self-checkout. But the principle translates completely. Apps like YNAB, You Need a Budget, and Every Dollar replicate the envelope system digitally. You pre-assign every dollar to a category before the week begins. You get a notification when a category is running low. You make conscious decisions about moving money between categories rather than just letting spending happen. And here's something interesting. I've talked to people who've tried both the physical envelope method and the digital equivalent, and a surprising number of them, particularly people who struggled with overspending, say the physical envelopes worked better, even in the modern world, even with all the inconvenience, because the inconvenience is the point. When I tried the envelope system myself, just for 1 month as an experiment, I found $43 in a single week that I genuinely could not account for afterward. $43 that had just vanished. Small purchases, forgotten transactions, the invisible drain that digital spending enables. Dorothy never lost a dollar she didn't choose to spend. And this is where things get even more interesting, because the envelope system was just the container. What Dorothy put into the grocery envelope and how she made it stretch, that was its own kind of art. The grocery envelope was Dorothy's biggest challenge and her greatest achievement. Feeding a family of 5, 2 adults, 3 growing children, on a reduced weekly budget, with no ability to just run to a drive-thru or order delivery, required a level of planning and creativity that most of us have never had to develop. Here is what her grocery system looked like in practice. Every Saturday evening, Dorothy sat down with a notepad, different from the budget notebook. This was specifically for food, and planned every single meal for the coming week. Breakfast, lunch, dinner, every day, all 7 of them. She planned around what was seasonal because seasonal produce was cheaper. She planned around what was already in the pantry, building meals that used up older ingredients before they could go to waste. And she planned around the sales circular from the grocery store, which was delivered on Thursdays. If chicken was on sale, chicken appeared in the meal plan multiple times that week in different forms. Roasted one night, in a soup the next, sliced cold in sandwiches for lunch. Then, and this is the key, she built her shopping list from the meal plan, not the other way around. Most of us go to the grocery store with a vague list, or no list at all, and we buy what looks good, what's on sale, what seems like a reasonable idea. We bring it home and put it in the refrigerator, and a week later, some of it is still in there, softening, wilting, going into the trash. Dorothy never shopped that way. She bought exactly what the meal plan required, not a little extra just in case, not a backup option, exactly what was needed. She wasted virtually nothing. The bones from a roasted chicken became stock. The stock became the base for vegetable soup. The stale end pieces of bread became breadcrumbs. Breadcrumbs went on to casseroles or were mixed into meatloaf to stretch the meat further. Bacon drippings were saved in a small glass jar beside the stove and used for cooking throughout the week. Potato peels were sometimes fried in those same drippings as a side dish. Her kitchen was a closed-loop system. Almost nothing that came in ever left as waste. Now let's talk about today. The United States Department of Agriculture estimates that somewhere between 30 and 40% of the food supply in America goes uneaten. At the household level, that translates to real money. If your family spends $400 a month on groceries and you're wasting 30%, that's roughly $120 a month going directly into your garbage can. Over a year, nearly $1,500 gone for nothing. Dorothy's solution isn't complicated. It's a meal plan, a shopping list built from that plan, and a commitment to using what you buy. That's it. No special tools, no expensive apps, a notepad and a pencil. Some people find meal planning tedious. I did at first, but here's what changed my mind. The mental load of not planning, standing in front of the refrigerator every night at 6 p.m. wondering what to make, making a last-minute run to the store, defaulting to takeout because there's nothing ready, is actually more exhausting. The planning is 15 minutes once a week. The chaos of not planning is every single day. Dorothy would have found this modern food waste situation almost incomprehensible. Not judgmental. She was a pragmatic woman, not a preachy one, but genuinely baffled. You worked to earn money, you spent money on food, and then you threw the food away. That math never would have made sense to her. Dorothy had a saying, "A boat doesn't sink from one big hole. It sinks from 100 small ones you didn't bother to fix." She applied this logic to utilities with the same precision she applied to groceries and the budget notebook. She didn't have a smart thermostat or a home energy monitor or any of the tools we have available to us today. What she had was attention, constant, habitual, unglamorous attention to the small things. The thermostat in their house, a simple round dial on the hallway wall, was set at 68 degrees during the day, 65 at night. Not 69, not 70, 68. If you were cold, you put on a sweater. That was the answer in Dorothy's house. Not a more heated answer, a sweatered one. This sounds almost laughably simple, but consider, the Department of Energy estimates that for every degree you lower your thermostat during winter, you can save approximately 1% on your heating bill. Dorothy's thermostat discipline, applied consistently across a cold Ohio winter, added up to real, measurable savings every single month. Lights were turned off the instant you left a room, not eventually, not when you remembered, immediately. Dorothy made this a household rule for the children, too. If she found a light on in an empty room, whoever was responsible did an extra chore, not as punishment, as consequence. Actions have costs. She wanted her children to understand that from a young age. Hot water was treated like a precious resource. Baths were limited in frequency and in how full the tub was run. The children bathed together, the two younger ones sharing bath water, which was normal for the era, and genuinely does save significant amounts of water and the energy to heat it. Dishes were washed in a basin rather than running the tap continuously. The washing machine, a luxury that not every household had in 1965, ran only when there was a completely full load, never half loads, never "I just need these 2 shirts." The shirts waited for a full load, because a half load uses nearly the same amount of water and electricity as a full one, which means half loads cost twice as much per item of clothing washed. Dorothy knew this math without needing a study to tell her. Now, in 2026, the equivalents of these habits are everywhere, and they're more impactful than ever because our homes are filled with more energy-drawing devices than Dorothy could have imagined. Vampire power, the electricity drawn by devices that are plugged in but not actively in use, costs the average American household somewhere around $100 per year. $100 just from things sitting there, plugged in, doing nothing. Your water heater is set to 140 degrees by default when it comes from the factory. You almost certainly don't need water that hot. Setting it to 120 degrees is safe, still plenty hot for showers and dishes, and can reduce your water heating costs measurably every month. Your refrigerator coils, if they haven't been cleaned in years, are working harder than they need to, drawing more electricity than necessary. A 15-minute cleaning with a vacuum can make a real difference. None of these are dramatic gestures. None of them will single-handedly fix a financial crisis. But stacked together, practiced consistently, they are exactly what Dorothy was doing in 1965, minding the small leaks, one by one, every single day. Because she understood that financial survival at a difficult moment is not usually about finding one big solution. It's about closing 100 small drains you didn't even know were open. There is a moment in Dorothy's story that her daughter Susan has retold many times over the years, and every time I hear it, it stops me. It was a Sunday evening, about 6 weeks into Robert's unemployment. It had been a hard week. No new job leads, the weather had been cold and gray. Robert was quiet in the way that men of that generation got quiet when they were carrying something heavy. The children were in bed. Dorothy was at the kitchen table doing her weekly map for the coming week. The numbers were tighter than usual that week, an unexpected expense. One of the children had needed new shoes urgently because the sole of the old pair had literally come apart, had eaten into the budget in a way Dorothy hadn't planned for. She looked at the emergency envelope. She looked at what was left after all the other allocations were made. And she took a quarter from the change jar on the counter and put it in the emergency envelope. Robert, watching from the doorway, said quietly, "Dorothy, it's a quarter." And she looked up at him and said, "A quarter is a decision, and I will not stop making this decision, not even when it's only a quarter, because the day I stop saving anything is the day I've given up, and I am not giving up." Robert didn't say anything else. He sat down across from her, picked up the pencil, and asked her what he could do to help with the map. That quarter and the decision it represented is the part of this story that I think matters most, because it wasn't about the money. Quarters don't save families. The habit saves families. The refusal to surrender the identity of someone who saves, even when saving is almost impossible, that is what creates the foundation that everything else is built on. Over the 8 months that Robert was searching for stable work, because there were some months where he had part-time income and some where he had almost none, Dorothy never stopped putting something in the emergency envelope. Weeks where it was $1 or $2, weeks where it was genuinely just coins. And when, in October of that year, their furnace needed a repair, a valve had failed, and in an Ohio autumn you cannot go without heat, they had enough in the emergency envelope to pay for it, in cash, without borrowing, without panic. It wasn't a lot of money in the envelope, but it was enough, because they had never stopped saving. And then there were the children. Dorothy made a decision early on that she would tell her children the truth. Not everything, they were 7, 9, and 12, but enough. She sat them down one evening and she said simply, "Your father is looking for a new job right now. While he's doing that, we're going to be careful with money. That means no extras for a while. No new toys, no restaurants, no things we don't need. But I want you to know we are okay. We are together, and we will get through this." She was calm when she said it, steady, matter of fact, and the children took their cue entirely from her energy. Susan, the middle child, later said that she never felt afraid during that time. Constrained, yes. Aware that things were different, yes, but not afraid, because her mother wasn't afraid. If Mom was calm, Susan said, then things were going to be okay. The way you carry hardship, the posture you hold, the tone you use, the degree to which you let fear run your face, that is what your family absorbs, especially your children. Dorothy carried that year with dignity, and her children grew up knowing that hardship was something you faced clearly, planned for honestly, and survived with your integrity intact. That might be the most valuable thing she passed on. Robert found stable work again in November. A different company, better hours, slightly better pay, actually, than the old job. The manufactured crisis, as Dorothy later called it, had turned out not to be the end of anything. It had been, in a strange way, a beginning. When the first full paycheck arrived, Robert brought it home and handed it to Dorothy with a look that was half relief and half something harder to name. Pride, maybe. Gratitude. Dorothy took it, looked at it, and then did something that tells you everything you need to know about her. She sat down at the kitchen table, opened the blue notebook, and started mapping the new budget. More money now, more breathing room, but the same notebook, the same system, the same Sunday evening ritual. The habits had become who she was. They didn't leave when the crisis did. Now let's talk about us. Here we are in 2026. The technology around us would genuinely astonish Dorothy. We carry computers in our pockets. We can order anything we want and have it delivered to our door within hours. We have apps for every conceivable aspect of financial management. We have access to investment platforms, high-yield savings accounts, budgeting tools, and financial advisors at every price point. And yet, the average American household carries thousands of dollars in high-interest credit card debt. Savings rates for a large portion of the population remain dangerously low. Studies consistently show that a significant portion of American households could not cover a $400 emergency expense without borrowing money or selling something. We are, in many measurable ways, more financially fragile than the middle-class families of 1965, with significantly more tools available to us. How is that possible? I think it comes down to one thing: consciousness. Dorothy was financially conscious in a way that our modern systems actively work against. Every dollar she spent, she felt leaving. Every week, she looked at exactly where the money was going, in total, before it moved. Every category had a limit and a label and a physical representation. We live in a system engineered to make spending unconscious. Auto renewals that we forget about, tap to pay that bypasses any moment of reflection, subscription services that are all individually small and collectively enormous, algorithms designed by brilliant people to get us to buy the next thing before we finish deciding about the last thing. Dorothy didn't fight a system like that. Her system was the friction. We have to choose to create our own friction, deliberately, against the current. Here are the 3 lessons from Dorothy's story that I believe are most applicable to your life right now in 2026. Lesson 1. Budget by the week, not the month. Monthly budgets are too long. They allow vagueness. They encourage spending freely early and scrambling late. A weekly budget forces you to confront your money every 7 days. It keeps the reality close. Try it for 1 month and see what you discover. Lesson 2. Make your spending visible and physical. Whether that's the literal envelope system, a budgeting app that you open every single morning, or a notebook at your kitchen table, find a way to make money feel real. The more abstract your spending, the more of it disappears without your consent. Make it concrete. Make it visible. Make it yours.